see, it's all very well talking about, I mean, I suppose the point is people watching us say, we all know that this is there, and everybody will respond in a particular way. But I mean, let me give you an example. Lisa Vetten, who certainly has been researching this area, is quoted as saying, there is no politician who has shown a sustained and in-depth interest in the problem. And she goes on to say, I wouldn't want to say that all politicians use rape in an opportunistic way, but certainly there are those who do. There are those who have no history of supporting it, will open their mouths and have a lot to say when it suits them. Now, that's a serious indictment in a country which has got this problem. To what extent is that correct? You've worked in this field.
Yes. No political champions, really. Not at the level she's talking about. Because it really does require sustained interest. It's not something that you can have a sort of a flash-in-the-pan interest in.
Well, that's what worries me. We have a program like this because I get moved by a particular story, and then I think, well, I've got to do something about this, and perhaps I'll do more. But the truth is we move on. And yet this may well be, maybe without question, the most serious particular social problem that we've got in this country.
That kind of support, it's not really about recovery. Government talks about victim empowerment and the victim empowerment program as the sort of plight of the poor victim and alleviating the suffering of the victim. That's not what it's about. What it's about is about supporting the rape survivor to have the confidence to tell her own version of events in court. And the kind of support systems that are needed in order to do that must be systemic throughout.
All right, but then let me ask either of you before I get on to Joyce, why are we not having a systemic discussion in this country why we've got this level of violence? Why are we afraid to do that? What's going on here?
Well, can I just say it's not about fear necessarily, it's about mechanisms not being in place that encourage this kind of multi-stakeholder collaboration. There aren't the mechanisms in place I mean, you can have a coordinating body, but it's what happens between that is important.
Thank you, because I want to, Joyce, what I'm concerned about is we've got this level of violence. It's a serious crisis. It's been for many years. Why are we not doing anything to have a national conversation of a sustained kind so that we can address the problem? And the problem can't be addressed by simply locking people up. That just can't be.
Yes, that's what I was saying that time when I said violence against women is a social crime. And in order to address social crime, you need to communicate with the people. So the Department of Women, Children and People with Disabilities is participating in the Orange Day program, which was established by Ban Ki-moon, where all government departments or all countries have to communicate on the 25th of every month. There has to be a communication with different provinces where we are highlighting the plight of women, where we are educating the public that they have the powers to stop the violence, because the violence happens at homes, happens before the departments come in. There is a continuous discussion.
But give me one instance here where there's a sustained idea, where your department has a sustained program as to how we are going to actually discuss and sort out how we address what is an extraordinary attack on women in this country on a daily basis.
The National Council Against Gender-Based Violence will be running with that program, where all government departments, including civil society, will be working together to educate people in terms of violence against women, to empower them, because people also need to be empowered to be able to protect themselves. But also perpetrators need to be empowered, because people who hurt other people are people who are disempowered too.
You work with men. So the question I want to know about that, I mean, what is it about, is there something in the psyche of South African men that actually means that there's a disproportionate number of hugely violent people who do these unbelievable violent acts?
I mean, the simple answer is yes, that there is a very serious problem in terms of men's attitudes and practices towards women. And I'm going to come back to that in more detail. Your earlier question was, why are we not having a sustained conversation? I don't actually think that's the problem. I think compared to many other countries, there is a significant public conversation about violence against women. The problem is that there isn't action that follows from that. So
well, actually, I'm sorry, you're right. That's okay, carry on.
So I think, you know, our media, in fact, our government officials, including senior government officials, talk a lot about the issue. What do you
say about Lisa Vetten's criticism?
So there isn't a champion who is championing the action that follows from the conversations. Okay. So to give you a concrete example, Joyce mentions the 365-day plan of action, which was developed in 2005, 2006, it has been sitting moribund for the last 2 years. It is no longer a plan in action. And I think it's useful to compare that to the action that has been taken on HIV and AIDS. So we have had for the last 10 years now a national strategic plan on HIV and AIDS that's costed and that's actually in significant ways implemented.
But you see, what's curious about that, sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt you,
Sure.
Dean, because I understand you worked for the organization. What's curious about that for me is we had a pathetic response to HIV AIDS for a long time. We don't need to go further.
Sure.
The Treatment Action Campaign and similar elements of civil society aspect, trade union movements and others, had a tremendous role to play in bringing, in a sense, the whole agenda into the center of our discourse. And I think they are it's now documented, critical to why we got where we got. Credit to the government for the fact that they've done what they've done. But in a sense, there had to be that impetus. Why isn't there that impetus with this?
So I think it's a very important question. So what is it that allowed for a critical mass of civil society activism to hold government to account, to shame government into doing something on HIV and AIDS? That produced in the person of the Minister of Health a champion who has made sure that treatment is rolled out. We now have 2 million people on treatment.
The present minister.
The current minister,
Right.
Minister Motsoaledi. And I think that's the kind of leadership we're looking to for the Minister from the Department of Women, Children and People with Disability to display, to make sure that we do in fact end up with a national strategic plan to address gender-based violence. We don't have that. The department has been in place now for over 3 years, and I think it really is time for the department to produce the kind of costed action plan that has political will behind it to make sure that we do something to address.
Well, I'm going to ask Joyce about that, but
Yeah.
before I do, I need to take a break and then we will get back to that.